Well, here I am back in Provence, 10 years further on. So I've lived in France now about 6 years, and we've just returned to the Prede in Provence, where I actually created one of my first ever films. About 12 years ago now, we came to this part of France and painted and did a watercolour, a pastel. And this time I've come and done 2 big oils. I'm going to do an oil later in the studio. So it's rather fun to come back to some of the same places and produce some artwork, and perhaps you may see some differences in the art, perhaps you may see some improvement or changes. But here we are in this lovely place, and I'm going to paint a sea scene for you and a vineyard scene, and then when I return home we'll do a studio piece of some boats in the harbour. So let me show you again around the area, some new places this time, as well as returning to one or two older places that we visited before. And you can share with me the cuisine of the area and some of the culture, and look at some of the nightlife and the surrounding countryside. Let's go then and enjoy. Okay, we've got a big mullet here in Provence. We'll make another film for you. I'm back here visiting a place that I visited 12 years ago, and my first art teaching film. And so now I'm going to come back and do some more paintings in similar places. Get a few fish for dinner as well. A nice mullet here. Oui, c'est bon pour la cuisine ce soir. So we have another one now, our second nice big mullet within minutes. It's a great place to fish. I hope we'll find some wonderful places to paint as well. We have a dorade, very good to eat. Dorade.
La mer qu'on voit danser le long des golfes clairs a des reflets d'argent. La mer, des reflets changeants sous la pluie. La mer au ciel d'été confond ces blancs moutons avec les anges si purs. La mer, bergère d'azur infinie. ensoleillée, près des étangs, ces grands roseaux mouillés.
Here up in the hills amongst the cork oak, the lovely texture of the bark of the cork. Well, today we've got a lovely vineyard to paint at, with a very old derelict building behind it, of architectural interest, which I'm going to try and incorporate. This is going to be an example of where we move things around, because I don't want all of this expanse of ground in the foreground, so I'm going to bring this lovely arch from the right further into our painting and move things around a bit to make the composition I want. I'm only going to need 3 brushes for this, nylon flats of 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, and a nice round point brush. Then I'm going to add some cerulean at the base, at the horizon there, and add a little bit more emerald into that cerulean to make it slightly more green. Then work my way up through the cobalt and into the ultramarine. Once I've blended those bands of colours, I take a little viridian green and add those in small broken strokes into the sky and blend the whole thing together, dragging those downwards gradually and making one broken colour effect. Continuing down from the sky into the horizon with warmer blues, ultramarines and some purples, and then down to my trees in the distance. There I mix yellow ochre and some cerulean blue to give a warm green, and can change the greens by adding either the warmer blues or the cooler blues. And I can also change it by adding the different yellows as well. I could add the cerulean to the lemon yellow, and the cerulean or the ultramarine to the chrome yellow. Once I've established all my mid-tones in the greens, I can start to add the lighter and the darker ones and become much more detailed. The base colour for the ground is simply yellow ochre and white. Then I start to add more burnt sienna into that to make it warmer in places, and the various greens and light yellows amongst those to give a more sunny effect. To get the effects of bright sunlight and heat, you need to have very strong lights and darks, so you want very strong shadows and then some very light bright areas amongst those to give this effect of the hot summer Provence sun. Not only can we get the effects of the heat of the day by using light and dark tones, we can also use our colour circle, and you'll see here that I'm using the warms against cools, the very deep ultramarine blues against cadmium reds and oranges, and also the purples against the yellows, to give the opposites in the colour circle and vibrancy of colour. I do have 3 man-made greens on my palette, that's viridian, sap and emerald, and I can adjust those accordingly as well. So with the use of the various yellows and the blues, you have a huge variety of greens. But do remember that blues are also very, very useful amongst those greens. Not only can we have warm and cools of any colour, so we can have a very blue green or a very brown green, but we can also use the cerulean blues and so on, which are very greeny blues. The turquoisey blues are very green because they've got yellow in them. So you have to look at the reflection of light on leaves. When you have shiny vine leaves, you're going to have very light turquoisey acidic leaves shining the light. And then underneath the vines, these very warm dark shadows of the greens, where you might even be using raw umber and a little blue to make a very dark warm green. Once again, my old rule of starting loose and finishing up as tight as one wishes. That way you are in control.
Right.
Down here especially, you know, I could paint these as pot boilers and totally enjoy myself. Same time, being in the right place. And I tend to follow the usual rule of the Impressionists and do not use pure black. I make my own blacks using Prussian blue or ultramarine, and then add in either burnt sienna or raw or burnt umber to that, which gives me a lovely dark. As you see, painting in this very loose way, at the very end of the work I'm able to put in those really pure vibrant colours from the palette, the pure cadmium reds and oranges and purples and blues. There we are then, it just needs a signature and I'm finished. Really enjoyed doing it. This close-up shows just how the painting is constructed, painting in and blocking in the background and then gradually working it up by all of the different highlights. And after all that thirsty work, here's some of the wine from that very vineyard. We had some later at the restaurant. Wonderful stuff. But on this particular evening we put together our own barbecue in the back garden of my friend in Provence. The sound of the cicadas in the background sounding almost Spanish. Wonderful atmosphere and a great time. And then to sample the local nightlife. Most of the bars have their own music and even some live music going on, as you see here. In the park nearby we heard some Mexican sound. So we trundled down and there's this wonderful group playing live and free, all to enjoy. As we were right on the coast in Provence there, I had been hoping to find a really good fish restaurant, and I certainly wasn't disappointed with the Plein Sud. Wonderful restaurant that we'd certainly recommend. Had a lovely time there with excellent dishes. And for my final painting on plein air in this section, we return to the bay that I'd painted 10 years earlier. And I'll show you a piece of film that shows the beach now, and here we are, the bay at this present moment. And then just after this, the bay as it was those 10 years ago, and then a short section of film showing the pastel that I did then. So you see there's been very little change in those 10 years. Isn't it wonderful that a place can remain as nice as this? And you can also see why it's called the Côte d'Azur, the coast of the azure colour. These wonderful cerulines that we're now going to play with and build up. Well, here's the scene we're going to paint, and as you can see I'm going to try and take in most of the bay from the far left hand corner and the point in the curve right round to behind me to the right, so it's quite a difficult composition. The view I've set up with a nice chunky studio easel and my little deck chair, my paints to my right, so I'm pretty comfortable on this one. I've pre-primed my canvas with Prussian blue and black, and then I've drawn the composition in with a white watercolour pencil. This means that I can easily wipe it out if I make a mistake. As usual I start off on the horizon, in this case using cerulean white and little rose because I want a more purple effect in the distance to get the heat haze. Then working my way up to the ceruleans, adding a little emerald, gradually through to my cobalt into my ultramarine, and even a little alizarin crimson into the ultramarine at the top of the sky. At first the sea will reflect these same colours coming down in bands from the horizon, but as I come further down I'm gradually adding more and more green and warm greens into this, and eventually we come right down to the beach edge itself where I'm going to be hitting purples and the warm browns and yellow ochres. This is where my technique comes very much into its own, because as you can see I'm painting very rapidly. I'm comparing colours rapidly one to another and very loosely painting them on and making judgments quickly as the light changes. And with the tide going backwards and forwards, with the waves constantly coming in and changing, you have to be quite versatile. And so like the vineyard, once again I've established all my midtones you can see here with some of the dark shining through in the background. So now I'm going to continue into the landscape in the distance, use the mid-tones there, and then add the dark and the light highlights of light shining across the buildings and onto the cliffs. But I am still pushing for these pure colours. I am still working the pure blues and the colours directly from my palette into the background here. Once the background's established, then I can come down back to the sea again, and we can start looking at the darks and highlights in the sea, starting to paint the tips of the waves, little creams and pink ripples as they come across, the sparkles on the water, and we can play these darks and lights against each other as well as those colours in the colour circle, as on the beach where I've got the purple against the yellows and so on. My short-term memory is not that brilliant, so I have to keep looking backwards and forwards, looking at the edge of a wave, looking at how the colours change as it starts to collapse and fall over, how the sparkles happen in the painting. I have to keep reassessing the colours one to another, and as the clouds move and the light changes also. One asset that can be of great use, of course, is a camera. Of course, not the old-fashioned film cameras, but the new digital cameras. This is because one can look immediately into the back of many of them and see the photograph you've just taken. Let's do that. Shortly you'll see on the film some children starting to play in front of me, ideal subject matter for my painting. It will also give the painting scale. To have a child in the foreground will show how large the sea is behind. So I had my camera at the ready, and here are a few shots I took of the children as they're playing in front of my canvas. In fact, the mum was very interested later and came to see the painting finished and asked for the website details so that she could look at the painting later and show her friends, which I was only too pleased to do. The way to paint the figures is to paint it in exactly the same way as you've just been painting the rest of the picture. Don't stop and try and dot all the I's and cross all the T's. Don't try and be pedantic. Treat the figures as loosely as the rest of the painting. Put the right colours in the right shapes in the right places and the figure will just appear. So when looking at the back of the camera, as with looking at a photograph, paint in exactly the same way as you would out of doors and the whole thing will stick together. If you try and treat the figure differently, as I've seen people do, some amateurs do in the past, or the dog that's next to them, it will stand up like a sore thumb. It will look totally unnatural. Everything is apart one to another. The light is the same across all of the objects, so treat it with the same style. In fact, I'll show you in my next painting in this film, where I'm painting in the studio, but again, paint very loosely, as if I was painting in plein air, and it will give you that wonderful vibrancy and effect of being out of doors. Well, that's it then. Let's pack up the easel, put the painting down so it doesn't blow away in the wind, and off we go to paint somewhere else. Well, to finish off the first disc of this film, I'm going to do this composition of the fishing boats in Provence, and you can see what an unusual angle it is. It's rather fun to play with these abstract designs and do something completely different. And of course this is inspired by putting the various photographs together and playing with them on the computer so that we have that design. And they're very, very bright colours, and I've enhanced those colours on the computer as well, deliberately because I want to get this feeling of really bright and Mediterranean light. So I'm going to play with very strong and vibrant, bright colours. There's also rather a fascinating swirling sky on this one too, which I'm going to have some fun with. So I've got this dark background, we're painting on prime board, and we're going to use some very, very strong colours. Right, here we go then. Take a 1/2 inch flat. And we'll start off, why not, we'll start off with the sky up here. It's at a weird angle because we have to sort of bring this perspective round and make a design out of it. We're not just, you know, copying things straight off from photographs. If we're going to use photographs, we want to advance beyond that and turn it into a work of art, not just a copy of a simple photograph. So we have to compare the colours of the sea and the sky and get this feeling of warmth. And there's a very, very pinky sort of sky in this. I'm going to start off then with some cerulean. My paints have gone a bit dry, so I'm going to break into these paints now again to get them going again. And a little touch of white. A little touch of terps. This way you can see me actually mixing the paint as I'm doing the painting. And the whole thing going on. And there we go, that nice bright, which I'm going to add into yet. I'm going to add a pink into this to really make it. It's a strange shape to paint on. I've had this a frame for this for some time and been wondering what to do, whether to do a figure with it vertically or whether to do a landscape. In fact, I've turned out now to do this seascape on it. We'll just leave indications of where I've drawn out the masts and so on are going. Now let's look at making some of those slightly pinker colours. We'll take some more white and add into that a little rose. So we'll try to. There we go. And some of the cloud effects that we have swirling around here are going to be in this pink. We're going to have some deeper blues as well. There's lovely clouds swirling around, so I'm just going to loosely paint them on. Now I can afford to come through the mask slightly because I know where they are, and that's what I've painted them there for, just so I understand. We don't want to be trying to smooth in and paint really tidy, neat clouds. We're just the effects that we need here. So a little bit of that ultramarine and the cerulean, the distant hills. Warm blue coming through there. Below that it would become much more turquoise. Just below that we start to add some more yellow into it to make a more turquoisey blue. You see these lovely colours we can get so quickly, but of course you have to have them to hand to start with. It's no good just having one blue. You cannot mix a lot of blues. You know, you're going to need some cerulean, you're going to need some Prussian, you're going to need some cobalt. You can get away with those blues. That's all you need. Cerulean blue, cobalt blue, ultramarine blue and Prussian blue. And those will do you. Take some terps and just flick in and leave a dark line behind just so I know where I've established where things are there. Now this sea area here, as I said to you, was becoming, it's a mixture. We've got some darker cobalt areas in there, and we've got some ceruleans. So I'm just going to again use up some of my deeper colours first, just to establish, just to get rid of this black board. There's nothing worse than having all the white or whatever board standing in your way. You cannot see the wood for the trees. You don't need to change brushes for this. You can cut down these lines, make them thinner later. Let's just get the colour there, get it vibrating one to another. I'll come back to the sea in a minute, but while I've got the colour on my brush, we'll use it. So that one goes there, this is the same behind here. Lovely med blues, and a bit lighter there. I've got it on the brush, use it. That light colour actually is over here as well. That pink is in fact, I need to get that in here while it's on my brush. Get this covered, get rid of this black. Lovely deep blues that are lurking behind this, and we can start drawing them back into the boat a bit where they are as well here. This one's alright just to get started off, but so let's go now and take some chrome yellow and add that to that, which will be a much stronger. Some chrome yellow in with the cobalt, and let's look at the sort of colours we get down here. You see much darker. We could add some warmer colours into that yet still, I'm sure. Bring that right up around the boats there, into here. Bring it up. Okay, take some of that white. Mix it in there. Have a look. It's not far out actually. Maybe a little more chrome in there. And a little yellow ochre. There we are, that's the colour we want. Right, so that's coming down all the way down there. Lovely bright sunny Mediterranean. South of France, Provence, Côte d'Azur. Here, there's other colours up there as well. Different, just one or two little shapes like that can make. Now, this planking here, how narrow am I going to take it? I don't want to go further than that, but plenty of terps, and let's establish this decking that comes all the way down here. Do that later and really make that vibrate a bit more. Right, I think we need to mix up some new colour and clean the palette up before we carry on. Well, we have a new palette of paints, so let's be getting on again. We'll work up these blues now. Taking them around. on now. Now that blue looks like the cerulean again with some white. It's fresh paint. It's nice to use the old stuff up, but it was a bit too far gone, that. Now let's test that. Actually a touch warmer, so I'm going to just add a little bit of, there we go, a little bit of cobalt to that just to bring it up a bit, and that can be a bit lighter yet. Right. Still got some darkening around these corners, so I'll just take some of the cobalt again and come down to that shadow and see if I can paint that down here neatly enough without resting my hand on anything. It's a light coloured rope, which I shouldn't really put in till the end, but I'll just indicate it now. It comes off over here, the bow, hangs through the boat there. Now we come back with the stronger yellow underneath. We layer some paint on now. To my thinner lines across here to indicate some of these planks. Some of them might have to be a bit greener. I should know how to do that with the tip of the brush without it making that much mess. I should be able to just flick on a fine line or two down here. And now we start playing with these very light highlights around the place, which will make the painting sparkle with sunlight as it catches all of these little areas. Right, let's get finishing off all these lovely darks down to the depths of the boat here. Take my Prussian again, like very, very deep Prussian. Add some deep purple to it and a touch of burnt sienna. Give myself a really lovely dark for in here. And then let's get in there with it. Can we just show the roundness of this ore by showing the anvil work there, and that'll be the side as well. There we go. Off the board there, I think. Let's add some yellow ochre to that burnt sienna and just see what we get coming down there. Makes it lovely, pure, bright. This is cadmium orange and white and a little bit of the chrome yellow now. Really pick up on these old planks. Right down through to there. I'll take the rigger brush in a minute because we need to do some of this finer rigging. But just for the moment, not quite yet. Let's just play a little more with these darks and ripple shapes here in the water. Just using the terps to blend the colours through a bit now. What's that deep purple, light purple? Let's have a look at the masts here. Will do for doing some of these medium stanchions, but not for a lot else. Okay, this brush should do the job. Let's have a paint on it and see what we think. Now then, got to go from here. Painting a bit more red on there in a moment. To the same side here. Join my line exactly. I'm going to paint this one line down to hit it exactly in the right place. Go. Tweak them in.
Apporte lui l'écho des beaux jours. Quand le soir dans les bras, vas-y chanter pour moi la chanson de mon rêve. Pour être heureux, toi et c'est tout. Il peut le printemps, que dure qu'un instant, et malgré nous ça fait beau.
La mer qu'on voit danser le long des golfes clairs a des reflets d'argent. La mer, des reflets changeants sous la pluie. La mer au ciel d'été.
Right, moving on from the beach scene we've just done, the boat scene, let's do a series of beach scenes now on the Provence beach, photographs taken at that same time. And we'll do a rapid series of quite quick but lively, unusual viewpoints on the beachscape. This one looking down on the beach, others amongst palm trees and so on. And we'll make a little exhibition of these, shall we? And show you the rapid way that we can paint, oil paint with this impressionist technique of broken colour, one colour into another, and these very bright, strong colours. I've played around with these photographs on the computer, as you can see. This particular one is very broken colour, and we're going to put the colours one next to another, as in, instead of mixing red and yellow for orange, we'll put little yellow dots and red dots together so that the eye is fooled into the orange. And one colour next to another will make it vibrate and sing to give the heat of that Mediterranean sun. Let's move into that. I've done the drawing already now with a watercolour pencil in yellow on the dark background, and I'll plan the rest of my canvas is the same. And then after this one, and then after this series, we'll do one final painting where I'm going to show you something a little bit different. It'll be from the wedding of my daughter. She had two ceremonies, one English and one Hindu. The Hindu was marvellous with all of its colours. The other was very beautiful and very formal, but the Hindu one with the music and the colours and everything else, I thought I'd rather like to do a scene for Rajiv's father. And we'll move on from then doing these loose impressionist paintings to finally to a more abstract one where we've taken these lovely bright colours one stage further and are using them for the saris and the colours. So we have a complete series for you, painting on plein air, the vineyard, painting by the coast there at the bay, finally the studio work of the boats, then into these beach scenes and a semi-abstract painting of the wedding but using these bright Mediterranean colours. Well, pouring with rain outside, stormy today, but that's a good reason to be sitting inside. I'm doing a painting about the sunshine and wonderful memories in Provence. Pour out some terps, choose a brush. Now we're going to need for this one. I'll do all this background first, so we'll get it covered, so I'll use my bigger 1/2 inch, I think. That's only a small canvas. What is it? What's this one, a 2030? Get the brush going. And in this case we're going to start with quite a light yellow. I'm going to take some the lemon and pile it straight on. Now the lemon, unfortunately, lemon yellow is so often a colour that's very pale, very thin, transparent, jelly-like. I don't know why, all the paints, many of the makers seem to make it that way. So I'm going to add some white to it, and that's actually called body colour. If we add a heavier colour to another to give it more opacity, more thickness, and that's called a body colour. So in this case, using the titanium white into this is going to, look at the difference now in that which is very thin, the black showing through, and then this white, this lighter yellow that I put on. I could put more lemon yellow into it, there's no worry there. And it gives me a much heavier colour to work with. Now at the moment I want to cover almost the whole of the canvas in that, just to get rid of this black. Right, there we go, that's our basics done there. And we'll just look at the background here, because behind these figures there's a bit of yellow coming through in places. I might as well get it in while we're at it. Right, now my next colour is going to be a much stronger orange, a much stronger yellow. In fact, I'm going to be using the chrome yellow direct. Here we go now, and just little strokes, just one after another, just tickling it on top, look. Chrome yellow direct, or cadmium yellow is fine as well, doesn't matter. Cadmium or chrome, very, very similar. We'll get this effect of this really hot beach. We've got a cool yellow and a warm yellow now. Little dabbles, little strokes. And our next colour is going to be a rather nice pink. Let me take some rose. So some white first, and a little touch of the rose into that. And we'll try and get the pink we need. That's still rather a red pink. Let's just do, I think. I want a cooler pink for this job, because the reds that we're going to use later are much stronger. So I need just the right rose colour. That one. Now let's try a little bit of that and see if it's strong enough, because I've made it fairly light. Yes, I think I'll put some of the light on first, and I'm going to come back to the darks. But do you see how it makes it sing? I think the colours really vibrate and sing with the warms and cools. So we've got our main colours in. A little bit of green amongst this too, which will really make those more purpley darks come out. Right, again, clean the brush. And we go for much darker. I was going to say Indian red, but I think we'll actually use burnt sienna, which is a fraction darker. Let's try it and see. Burnt sienna and a little Indian red, and okay, we'll compromise. I agree with you. Yes, that's plenty dark enough. Again, just neat, straight into the painting. It gives us this little shadows of the stippling of the brush, gives me some texture as well. After this we've got to start painting a bit more carefully. Just a few blobs here and there, not too much, just where on the painting it's occasional. Not a lot, just here and there. Okay, so that's our background basically done. Now we can start working in the rest of the colours. Let's look at the sea next, which I was talking about a turquoise. We're going to take first of all some cerulean white. So it's a fairly strong turquoise, this one. In fact, I think I'm going to need a little bit. Let's just test it. Yes, it's actually still too cool. I'm going to need a little bit of green into that, a little bit of lemon yellow into it maybe to make it a bit more turquoise still. Let's try that now. There we are, that's better. It's a lot more turquoise than I thought. So, because there's some of that blue coming down here into the towels. Got some blue greys going on here. We'll just put an underpainting in for the umbrella there, the blue greys. Pinks coming down there, which we still just made. We'll use some of that. Right, well, there's our basics. Now we have to start actually working on individual colours. We've done a very light cream on the background, but this towel actually is a light cream. So we'll make it lighter still. That's got a bit mucky. There we go. We'll take a little break now. Come back to that shortly. Okay, let's go into some more detail now. We've painted the basic background and it's time to come up to paint these figures. As I've been saying, what we want to do is paint in just block shapes of everything. If we paint the right colours, the right shapes, the right places, everything should just appear. Let's take, for instance, this the bands on this even. I'll just take my little 1/4 inch flat and some ultramarine. A little bit of burnt sienna because it wants to be a little bit warmer. That. Don't want it too warm. This is the beauty of we're making darks with the brown and the blue. You can go either direction you want. And we should be able to just paint in the lines of this ever so easily. So nice and quickly, nice and simply. Don't want to have too much paint moving in it. Down here it goes up slightly thinner. Smooth that up, and then just trickles around here, and there's another dark band just there. Which then jumps and comes out again one step higher up here. And if we do that every time, you'll find that these bands will start to make sense. So let's do another one. They're approximately the same thickness to each other, so if I do this, right through there again, plenty of blue on the brush, and then curve around to that. All I have to do, jump up one again to there, and here, do the same thing again, we jump up one again, round to there. Until finally we come to the very top of the umbrella there. And these get closer and closer together until they actually do start to join up here. And there's our umbrella. It has also on it, it's reflecting some of the yellows from the sand. So down this edge, especially here, we've just got to tickle in some of the yellows just down this edge. But a bit lighter than the other grey, and that has to come in right up to here, around there, and some of it in and around here, and down to here. Down her arm, forward. And along her leg here. Out to her foot. We'll work the drawing a bit more finely on that soon, but not quite yet. Now, that's a bit better. So that comes from the shadow here out. A bit brighter across the shoulder here. And a little bit on her arm there. There. So now some pure white, just put in, plonk in that page there and there. Instantly she has a book in her hand. I've got another bit of book, literally, just out from here, over here. There's paper lying on the ground over there. I've got the colour in her hand, as I say, use it. Now this warmer colour going on down her back. And we'll plonk in some darks in a minute, which will suddenly pull this out. You see, quite warm down there. The opposites in the reds here. So we want to make a greyer, a bit more blue and brown to make a lovely grey here. Shoulder is there. Round here we paint carefully, and under her arm here to join up the line of a bikini. Which gives us some form. Some shadow under her hand here. Not a lot, but just get the marks in the right places. This has got a good chunk of shadow under here. Coming round there with the ultramarine. Join in from the back of that bikini. And then some of the orange. I can just touch up under here as well. She's a little bit lighter on the top of her head there. Fingers to blend that. She has more warmth in her face just there. Then we come back down to the beach towel here, which has a lovely rich red on it. I have some cool red on there, so I'm going to take some more of my rose. In fact, it probably isn't far off. Let's have a little look. It's fairly cool, so a touch of white with it. Make it a bit stronger. Try and keep it clean, or the vibrance of the colour will be lost. There we go. That's more like it. A bit more rose into that, and we'll bring that right up to the shadow here, down and through. I have a feeling we've got to make it a bit brighter yet, so although that's the cool red that we want, I know I'm going to have to make that a little bit stronger yet. And this one's the same. Well into the bottom half, we're now just working up these figures in the top here, quite loosely again, using my little 1/4 inch flat and a round, just to block in most of the colours and establish where they are, then cutting around them with the surrounding colours and gradually work backwards and forwards until we have our nice loose figures there. What we want to do is have them with a few brush strokes, a few simple marks, just give you an impression of the figures moving. And finally then we'll go, when we've got all of that done, we'll do the final little highlights, sparkles of water and surf and so on. So let's have a closer look at the show. You can see just how loosely the figures are painted. Well, here we go then on another beach scene. We just enjoyed doing that lovely little bright yellow one. And this one's from the similar series. It'll be another quite bright painting with some strong oranges and strong vibrant blues going on, greens coming in here and some deep purpley blue shadows to give the feeling of the warmth in Provence again. The warmth down in the Côte d'Azur. So we'll start off with the sky, and it'll be broken colour effects again. We're doing an impressionist sky again. In this case I want some medium greys, some very warm greys, so we're going to use some cerulean at first. Plenty of white as a body colour. So we've got our cerulean blue, and to that we can add a bit of violet. That in, as it's quite dark, so some of that's going up here. As you mix the colours and you test them, you can actually put them onto an area that you feel they're similar in. Let some of the purple that's on the brush just blend around. Really want to enjoy lots and lots of colour again. This time you see we're working on a white canvas, which is going to be again quite different. That's more blue there, lighter blue. And around here, maybe even a touch more cerulean up into this bit of sky here. So now you can see the differences in those colours, and as we come down here, it's going to become slightly greyer, and in that case that's going to mean more mauve for me. And coming down lower in the horizon, it gets a lot greener down here. So I'm going to take some emerald, add white to that, and a little touch of cerulean. Start to get a much lighter pale green down here. Back to a little bit pinker now in that centre part. I'm just going to touch a little bit of rose into there. Because we're working on a white canvas it seems quite dark, but in fact these are very light colours that I'm using. So we continue just feathering in these colours one into another to get the effect of the clouds coming up. Having got our sky done, we can always add some more to that later. We now come down to the sea here, I think. We'll look at these turquoises. Again, we already have some cerulean mixed. Let's just check that colour against it. A little bit dark, I want it to be a bit greener. So we'll take our emerald green again. It's coming in here. It's a little bit dark, but it always looks dark against the white when we first start off anyway. I said to you earlier, it's very difficult working on a white canvas. You can see now why in the previous painting I worked with a dark ground, because you don't have all of this problem of the white glaring through. So all the way along here, the horizon of our sea. Heat coming up in there. A little bit more purple into those there. So they're warmer still. Quite dark. It's a very rapid way of working. Many of you like this way because you get the effect of light. All the way through here, as the sunlight ripples across the water. It goes all the way through. And this needs to be a nice dark. So we'll take some Prussian blue and some burnt sienna, because that will give me a lovely deep, not a black, but either the more warm I have or the more blue I have, then the decision is as to whether it's a cooler or a warmer. More blue in that. Let's go all the way along here. Around that umbrella. Some more colours down there, around those, up there, right in the dark down here as well, wherever there is some. We'll cover the whole of that and then we'll put some lights in on top, which we can do with oil paint and acrylics. With watercolour we have to paint the lights leaving the darks. Here we can put the darks and put some lights on afterwards. So I'll take that now and we'll come right the way down to the end of these trees, just flicking in with the edge of the brush, the effect of the trees coming into this. Right up through there. Swirling round. Cover this white up, let's get rid of it. Just to enjoy your painting, and I do enjoy this sort of painting. Because look at these lovely colours we can make and how quickly we can work. Put these darks against the lights here. Let that break into the sea. Now some of these darks can be used down here again later. They will be, in fact, because in fact when I've got it on my brush, why not use it? Some of these darks are going to be coming in as shadows. We'll paint them in even now before we paint the rest of the canvas. Backs of the figures, shadows here. Well, I've got it on my brush, let's establish it. Even on her head. Establish the darker colour of her hair now. On the side of that girl's head. Wrong side brush really, but we're just trying to flick it in just to give you the idea of how we can work these so quickly. Back of this girl's head. Be a bit neater later, but how you see the tones establishing now. Go lighter still. Take some emerald again, with a little yellow, and we'll find some of the greener greens. To play with our colours here, I'm going to make a very light orange. I'm going to take some cadmium orange, in fact, and add it with white, which will make me a very light orange. So, just test that. Yeah, that's really strong, isn't it? And I'm going to take some chrome yellow and add white and a little bit of the orange to that. That's a lovely colour. And that's more the colour I want. I will add more pure yellow to that later. Let's just get it, at the moment, let's get it covering this surface. I want to get rid of all of this white canvas as much as I can now. Really cover up this surface. Now those oranges we talked about. Let's start to bring little bits of those flecks in. Down one stage further, take some burnt sienna and just see how dark the burnt sienna seems in the shadows of these little bits of footmarks. Hundreds of people treading over the sand during the day, and how that darkens it down yet again into a warm shadow. Brush again. So look at these here. We've got quite nice light blues to go in there, similar to the sea colour. See how the jigsaw of the painting is pulling together. So a little bit of light blue coming up into here a bit more as well, just a little bit there. So all we have to do now is keep putting the right colours in the right places, and this painting will just appear like a jigsaw. Let's look at some of the flesh tones on these figures now. I think we can get away with using quite a bit of burnt sienna for them. Maybe a bit of cadmium orange here and there. Let's have a look and see. Yeah, that's not a bad colour. We can go a bit darker and a bit warmer in places, but on the whole I think that colour's about right. All I have to do is just try and get the drawing correct. What there's on the edge of the canvas here to help balance these central figures out, so I don't mind a figure just coming off the side of the canvas. So we gradually work our way down from the largest brushes to the smallest brushes and the details at the end on this. It's usually the case in painting. Same with watercolour, we work from the large to the small. Although sometimes in the watercolour I've been known to put the last loose washes on around the figures with a mop or even a flat. Anyway, here we go again. Here amongst the waves as well, amongst this green colour, we'll put some lemon yellow, which is a very green yellow anyway. We've almost come to the end of this work, and it's more a matter now just pulling out some of the drawing here and there. Some cadmium orange down this arm for reflecting the light from the beach. All I need to do is just a few more little light highlights. There's a few little twinkles of very light cream pinks going on the surface here. And then I have to sign it, of course. So what should we do that in? Now, do we use a very light colour like a red, or do we use a darker, possibly even a green? Whatever we do, it has to be part of the picture, so be careful. I think a warm colour that's going to lead it forward might be a good idea. So let's take a nice red and add a bit of purple to that. Get a bit darker until we can do with that. Keep it fairly fluid. You see, it does actually fill up that corner, so it's quite an important piece of signature like this.
qui font baisser les miens, un rire qui se perd sur sa bouche, voilà le portrait sans retouche de l'homme auquel j'appartiens. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, qu'il me parle tout bas, je vois l'avion.
Now for the third part of our series of beach scenes. Here we've got some nice little palms and figures sitting in the shade underneath them. So this is going to be a shadowed area, and behind the Mediterranean, the Côte d'Azur again. Now the thing with these palms is that we're going to paint in some of the mid-tones and dark tones here first, and then work the lights over the top to get the effects of these masses and masses of fronds. We'll make it look as if we've done lots and lots of work, whereas in fact we're just going to indicate them as usual, just to give an impression of them. We'll get in our mid-tones here with the sky first, and all the sky around the background, and some of the little light areas again painting afterwards. We aren't going to draw the whole thing in, I've just shown the main shapes in the drawing. So again, as normal, let's hit the sky and the light areas through the sky, then work in our mid-tones, some of the darker tones here, and gradually work up over the top with our lighter colours. In watercolour, we would be doing masking fluid for these lighter colours and the light shining through the palm trees, but in oils we'll paint the lights over the top. From the sky we'll come down to the horizon, and then the beach, and then we'll start painting in the figures in the background and finish off. Okay, so the first thing is the difference in blues on the sky here. Côte d'Azur, so we have the azure, we have the turquoises here and the ceruleans, and a much warmer pinky blue here, giving us the feeling of the warmth against the sea. So I'm going to start with a little white on my brush, and then a touch of smallest touch of cerulean, because I want it to be more pink this time, and a little touch of rose, so that it's fairly purple this time. Try that, that's better. That will do, because this warm grey will make the cool blues of the sea really sing out and give this Mediterranean light. And so just working over the palm tree leaves a bit, because I know I'm going to want to work into those. And as the terps, the small amount of terps that I use in it, evaporates into the air, I can work over it a bit more and just feather it in. I want to come to the bluer areas. Again, we're going to come back to our cerulean, a little touch of it in the white, and gradually go warmer as you go up. So I'll add that in there, just feathering it in amongst the background. Pick up on the pink from when you're blending the blue into it, and then bring it back up into the sky. So the cobalt blue, which is our middle strength of blue, just coming in higher up here. And that basically is our sky done. Now we need to come down to the sea. Much, much lighter, more turquoisey blue, almost into the greens. So in fact I'm going to start here with just doing that. I'm going to take some white and add a little touch of my emerald. And into that emerald just place the tiniest bit of cerulean. And you see what colour it gives us down here, this lovely turquoise green. I'm going to work all the way along in a band with the sea behind here. And already we've got wonderful colour. Not just blue sea, but the use of real colours that are happening there. We've used the computer to enhance these colours to really bring them out. So work that all the way along. I take a little more white, and into that add a little more cerulean so it becomes more blue. And we go higher up here and just feather that into the edge. And below as well we get a similar colour, but slightly, just slightly warmer. So I'm going to take a little touch of the rose into that and make that tad warmer in the foreground here. Just link it together. Now up here we've got quite a strong blue. So I'm going to take a smaller brush because our areas are getting quite small now. And we need the cobalt up there again. A little 1/4 inch for this job. So I'm going to take my cobalt, even a little touch of ultramarine, tad more white in there. Through the tree then, doesn't matter though. I'm going to bring some of the green back into that colour with a bit more white, just to link it here. A little greener down that bit. The distant islands there, which are a purpley colour. I said we made that earlier, so we should still have it here to use. This should be it. Let's see what we've got. Yes, that's it. It's slightly lighter. There's a slight bit of hazy atmosphere coming in between the mountain and the sea. So I shall come back, the island and the sea, I shall come back with a little bit of a fine brush and a little bit of a light pinky blue in a minute, and just lighten in between the island and the sea. Okay, that gives us our distance. If there's a hard edge, you can just use your finger to soften it a fraction if you like that. And again, it looks strong because of the white canvas, but it won't be once we've got the darks on. Okay, we're going to go to a larger brush again and come back to painting in the palm tree leaves now. So we'll start with our midtones. In this case, we've got some quite warm greens. So I'm going to take some yellow ochre, just plonk some of that straight on just to feel some of the warmer colours that are happening through the palm leaves here. For instance there. Before I really get into using other greens, this yellow can just glow through here. Some bits down here which are lighter as well. So a little bit of neat yellow ochre there, these palms. Then I'm going to mix some cobalt with that yellow ochre, which will give me a nice warm green, but a fairly dead green. But that's what I want for this job here at the moment. There we go. So you see how much darker that is. Now, I'm not going to try and paint a lot of detail, I'm just going to feather that out with the brush. Just use the tip of the brush to feather it out as if there are some palm fronds there already. Giving me my midtones. Darker and darker into this, and at the very end we're going to come back with some of our lights and just flick them in over the top surfaces, again to get the feeling of masses of detail, even if it's not actually being painted in with a single brush. Just work on this area over here of the jetty there, which is going to be cream, a little bit of white into it later. brush, all pointy round. And again we're going to take the same colour, that ultramarine and burnt sienna, to give me the real darks back there. Plenty of taps in that to get a nice fluid mark. And we'll just see about painting in some of these in more detail. Let's see how these layers are building up now. Did a painting like this similarly for you in the oil painting video of the bush in New Zealand, which came out very well. Back to a smaller brush, back to a flat again, and we'll work backwards and forwards across this now. We've got our sort of green background there. Let's now add a bit of burnt sienna to the Prussian and make it a bit warmer, a bit browner, and we'll come down using the brush across like this, look, to get the feeling of these palm tree, pineapple-y surfaces where the leaves have been cut off over years past and it's grown up. Just twisting the brush down and round, leaving the light areas showing through in this case, even on somebody's swimming costume. There's no point in hanging back. If the colour's there, put it in now. Wherever that dark colour is, if you've got it on your brush, use it. Start to look at the seeds, the oil seeds of the palms. Okay, we've got the blues showing through. Now we need to make some very light greens. So I'm going to take my lemon yellow and you need some clean terps for this now as well, and some white and a little touch of emerald, which will give me a very light cream, quite an acidic green, much cooler green than the rest, which again is going to help with the sunlight effects. As you can see from this now, these warm colours are making such a difference through here, as the hottest part of the sun just comes through in places. But this area of sand here, what colour can it be? It's not. It's a fairly warm cream, so I think we'll mix up some white and some chrome and a little cadmium orange. And how bright is that? That's not far off. Let's work in these basic shapes, and I'm going to come back and put in the stripes of the palm tree leaves across these areas as they are. It's lovely. I'm using cadmium orange and cadmium yellow at the moment to really enjoy these sunlit areas that are coming in between the leaves of the well, I think at this stage we're about ready to have a go at the figures now. So the idea before that is just flick in these background umbrellas. Get the sunlight catch some of the pure white on the edges. Got plenty of room left on the film. This will be my penultimate painting now then, using the enhanced photographs from the PC to paint some bright Provence beaches. So I'm going to do this last one because it's such a nice and unusual composition, and then we'll do just two children shrimping on the beach, just to narrow down on a smaller painting and show what we can do just painting whole figures but with this very loose technique. Okay, we'll start off with the sky as usual. Take a nice half-inch flat. And again we want fairly mauve colours here to play against the yellows. To make it a more bluey grey. Look at the difference we get there. Now we have to get a nice cerulean blue going with some white. I may even have to add a little touch of some lemon yellow into this to make it a bit lighter still. Bring some of the same colour down into this. If you were pointillist, you could use a smaller brush, but I can just use the tip of this brush to tickle things in. And again, it's quite different to the previous painting, although we've got some similar colours going on, and we've certainly got similarities in the way that we want to use the purples and the blues against the turquoises later to really make everything stand out, the bright umbrellas and everything, to give the feeling of heat, in other words. And while I'm at this, I'm going to paint in one basic colour for the umbrella as well. As I keep saying, when you've got a colour on your brush, if it's the right one to use somewhere else, use it up. Don't mix some more later. Continue painting the colour that you've got wherever it is. And always, I know it amazes some of you to see how fast I work, but just look at the speed we can paint at. And a little emerald green. Before I do that, let's just check where else it might be. Before I carry on mixing the colour, I've got the right colour green to go in on some of this toweling here, so again I will do it while it's there, while I've got the colour mixed. There's no point in having to mix it all over again. Already establishing our lights and darks even at this stage. The green in the background, again, we're going to use the light colour first, which is going to be the emerald, and I'm going to put a little bit of yellow ochre with that, just to deaden it down a fraction. Like as I say, if you see green elsewhere, we'll put it in. May even need a touch of burnt sienna to make it even warmer, just a little touch, not too much, be careful. And there we go, that's nice. And a little bit of cobalt pure here and there into this too. This is our mid-blue, the cobalt, our slightly cooler blue than the ultramarine. Ultramarines and cobalts to play with. There we go. I'm going to just thin down some terps and block out these white areas a moment before I put on the reds there, just in case I don't want any white showing through. I'm going to paint orange in that one first. Got a reason for that. That is that I'm going to darken it down afterwards. I'm going to put this orange on first and then afterwards come in with cadmium red on top to let the orange glow through. Oh, I'd love to be actually doing this out there on the spot, huh? Whilst I've got this orange on my brush, let's look where else it might be, like up here for instance. Just paint it straight in the right place. Just little bits of colour and white here and there to again give the illusion of the boats. We can do this sort of detail at any time, but I'm just putting a bit in now because I just feel like doing it, and if I feel like doing it, it's my painting, why not? So we take the fine brush now and make it into a blade, so we can flick in these masks just with a single downward stroke like that. Next we're going to go for the sand, and similar to our last mixture of white and chrome and a little bit of cadmium orange. And now we'll use some cadmium orange and white to give the vibrance to this sand, having used the chrome yellow and white as a base again. And we'll put a little bit more pink into this in a moment as well, just to give a bit more life again. We've worked on this little bundle of figures, now I've got to carry on up here. At the moment I'm using my burnt sienna and rose and a little bit of the ultramarine to give me the depths of the blues and some of the shadows, and Prussian blue and burnt sienna into the shadows. These figures now, we'll do the figures in the distance here first. Let that leg go down and out a bit. And this one comes forward. I'll put some shadow in there in a minute. We'll do some more shadow on again in a moment with the sienna. Girl's shoulder here. And sunlight catching him across this shoulder there, very important. A little bit on this woman too, I keep calling her a guy. Now this one is awkward because we could either sign here or here. I think we probably will sign here because of the flow around to there. But to balance it, what I'm going to do is just add a little from all the darks, just one or two little bits here and there, just to draw the eye in and forward. If there's a few pebbles or cigarette ends just here. Here. And what should we use? I think probably the purple, because again it'll draw the eye forward. There we go. And maybe a little flourish underneath this one. Okay, now for our final painting. So it's quite a small one, and we're going to do these two little figures, the boy and the girl, which I did at La Pradette. It's a photograph that was taken whilst I was doing the en plein air painting earlier, and I thought it'd be rather nice to just enlarge them. And we're going to put it under glass, this oil, with a little frame we're going to use, and it's actually going to go under glass. Oils under glass are rather Victorian things. You don't have to have them under glass, of course. You can just have them with, just varnish them. This is on hardboard, and I've primed the hardboard. All the rest have been on canvas. So we're going to paint the background first and then work the figures up as usual. Okay, this area, we have to look at the base colour. I'm going to put a light turquoise green through here, and then work through my greys and blue greys, and then work the darker greys over the top afterwards. This area is white on the picture anyway, but I shall put that in afterwards with impasto white, so heavy white. Let's start on this bit first here. And as we're painting this fairly small painting, we want to be painting with fairly small brushes. I'm going to start off with a round nylon on this one at first, number 4. I'll mix up this colour here. So the turquoise for that now. I think some emerald green and a little touch of blue should give us the colour I want there. So we've got some green going. Let's have a look at that first. Yes, that's quite a nice green. Of course, nice smooth hardboard, very different to painting on the canvas that I was doing earlier. This is a much different effect. But we're still going to paint fairly loosely. As I said earlier on, it's very important that your drawing is good. It doesn't matter how loosely you paint afterwards, but the drawing you start off with must be a good drawing. Because if you start off with a bad drawing, it's very hard to pull it together with the painting. Put a bit more green, light green into that. This is quite a lot. This hardboard's quite absorbent, and one of the nice things about it is that you can paint fairly quickly because it actually sucks the paint onto the surface. Now I need to go to my cerulean. Which is quite light this time. Yeah, that's not bad. A little bit lighter still, I think. It's always difficult to tell when you're painting on white board because obviously the white makes it look a lot lighter than it actually is. So I'm going to paint this all over. Quite rapid on small work like this. Makes you wonder if you were using a compatible size brush for a bigger painting. You know, if I had a 1 metre canvas here and I had a 10-inch house paintbrush, it'd be good fun to paint with in the same way as I'm painting small scale with this number 10. And we have to come back to these blue greys in a moment. We do want a little bit of the cobalt coming into it now. And we just use the tip of the brush to get the feeling of these ripples and waves. Not far off. A little touch of purple and some yellow ochre to give me a browny grey, which is going on back into here. Some unusual colours, and this is what the computer brings out. It helps me to see other colours that I wouldn't even normally see, and then once you've got those in your head and you want to go back and paint the sea later, you find that a lot of these colours remain with you and you think, oh yes, I can see that now. I'm going to need quite a lot of that grey, so I better start mixing up. Some purple, some blue, cerulean blue, some white, and a little yellow ochre will give me the grey that I want. Well, I've got it on my brush, that blue's coming through here. going to paint right across where the white surf's coming. I'm going to put that white surf back in again over the top in impasto. Just lather it on with this brush in a minute. Now I need to make some of these lighter colours that are happening as the water comes up here, but before I do that, let's do what I said I was going to do just now and take the white and impasto it onto here to make this wave coming through. So a heavily painted, nice thick white paint coming through here. Interesting way to paint, isn't it? Nice free, loose way to paint. Working loosely and gradually tightening up. I want a little bit of cream in that. Need a bit more colour. Not happy with just what the photograph's done. I take it one stage further. If I want some colour, I put it in. It's my choice. And actually start to paint some of the details in at last. There we go. And now I'm going to start to need, I think, my finer brushes. So I'm going to come down, maybe able to finish with a round pointed You see how dark that now looks. I'll work some lighter over that in a moment. Now I want to come to one colour and paint the whole figures in a flesh tone. A cool mauve, I think, with a little touch of yellow ochre. Should give me that wonderful warm. That's it. There we go. Let's bring that down. We can soften that a bit more later. I just want a little more yellow ochre in that, just to deaden it down a bit more. We'll give her a lovely warmth against the sea, the flesh tones. Later with some finer work. Now the boy. If that's the trousers there, then maybe I made him too long. There, trousers finish there, that's it. And just by painting these darks in, we're helping to form the figure. Let's see if we can paint the brush, the net stick in fairly carefully. And that comes right up behind. And actually off the picture, which is quite fun. And hers as well. Comes out from behind her here, right up back to there. There we go. Now we need a lighter line on there, some very light cadmium orange and white. That wasn't clean enough, so I've got to do it again. In fact, I'm not even certain, I think I might have a bit of yellow on that because it really is a very light colour. Yes, a bit of chrome yellow. Touch of cadmium yellow, and let's see if we can just put that highlight along the sunlight along the top of that handle. There we go. Comes through there and continues on right down here. And you see how these things suddenly and wonderfully appear for us. Now a very light mauve, so a little touch of mauve and plenty of white. Let's see if we can get some of the colours of this net going here. Bit of this white board as soon as we can. Nice light line on top there, almost white. Just catching the wet net. Same here. And finally we just sign it. Painting under glass. Maybe want to just lighten that frame a little bit, it's rather too bright, but that's the effect we wanted. Well, that's the end of our film, Painting in Provence, and I've given you a good one for your money, I think, painting on plein air and painting in the studios, and a whole series, a whole plethora of different beach scenes, plus a vineyard one. Do hope you've enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you watching my other videos.